Good morning, good people, brothers, sisters, and beautiful, defiant siblings in the movement. Welcome to the unapologetic voice of labor, equity, and action. This is CWA Our Power Radio Show, where we amplify the organizers, uplift the everyday workers, and honor the giants whose shoulders we stand on. Right here on KYOK 1140 AM, the all new 106.5 FM in the heart of Houston, Texas. If you're rolling through H Town or just fired up anywhere in the world, stream us live on KYOKradio.org on the CWA Strong app or catch the replay anytime by searching CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast platform. Because this space, this time, it's about us. That's right, it's about us. We're talking union contracts, organizing victories, labor rights, human dignity, fair pay, and bold everyday resistance to injustice in every form. So whether you're on the job, in your car, at your kitchen table, or deep in the fight, lean in, honk your horns, and if you stand with workers, throw a fist up if you know your worth. Joining me today on the Fire Starters and Truth Tellers are Mikeya Jones, Sir Reginald Small, Timmia Wiley, and Tay Akins. So buckle up, beloveds, because the power we build together, that power is ours. So let's get right on into it. Our union voices are ringing in every district from Alaska to Maine, Texas to Minnesota, Canada to Puerto Rico, because we don't play at CWA. Our union brothers, sisters, and siblings at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette have been outside for 33 months striking on the picket lines, and yet while they're striking, they're still churning out the news with facts for you and me. Let's show our support to them by making sure we subscribe to unionprogress.com. Once you subscribe to their free publication, how about going over and donating to their strike fund at cwa.org / PPG donate. Again, cwa.org / PPG donate. And I just heard someone shout, when we fight, we win. Today on CWA Hour Power, I have the honor of uplifting a leader whose name is synonymous with integrity, truth, and service. We're taking this moment to recognize Reverend Corrine Mack, the president of the NAACP Charlotte Mecklenburg branch in North Carolina, and one of the most principled voices in modern activism. Reverend Mack's leadership is not rooted in titles, trends, or performance. It's rooted in action. It's rooted in love for a community. And it's rooted in a lifetime of standing on the front lines when it wasn't convenient, profitable, or popular to do so. With over 50 years of continuous activism, Reverend Mack brings a rare depth of lived experience to her work. She began organizing as a child and never stopped. Her work spans across civil rights, labor rights, environmental justice, education, and healthy equity because for her, liberation has never been a single issue cause. Under the leadership, the Charlotte Mecklenburg NAACP has become a bold and unflinching force, whether testifying before city councils, challenging systems of racialized policy, or uplifting grassroots organizers. Reverend Mack ensures that the voices of the most impacted are not only heard, but centered. At this year's 116th NAACP National Convention held in Charlotte, Reverend Mack was instrumental in creating community-centered spaces like the Hub, which showcased Black-owned business, youth leadership, voter engagement tools, and wellness resources all in one place. It was not a spectacle, it was a strategy and model for what intentional community-rooted organizing can look like. She is also a strong labor ally, someone who understands the workers' rights are human rights. Her decades of service include deep collaboration with unions, public service workers, and community-based labor coalitions. She consistently pushes for economic justice that includes the poor, the working class, and those who've historically been pushed aside. But this distinguishes Reverend Mack most in her clarity, the way she speaks truth in rooms that often avoid it. And at this year's convention, she affirms what so many of us have felt in our bones. When in so many words, she says, we just can't talk about it. We've got to be about it. And in that one statement, she called the question on all of us: are we doing the real work or just performing it? Are we building sustained power or are we building platforms for ourselves? Are we rooted in community or are we chasing visibility? Reverend Mack doesn't just ask these questions, she answers them with her life. She also spoke courageously to support the NAACP's decision to not invite somebody to the convention. For her, it was a matter of principle. Civil rights organizations must not lend credibility to any administration that enacts policies harmful to our communities. That too is real activism. Saying no when it counts, even when it's risky. In a world where so much activism is curated for optics, Reverend Mack stands as a reminder of what it means to lead with purpose and not performance. She often says to her community, especially to Black women organizers, I see you, I hear you, I love you. We are all we have. And in that spirit of collective love and responsibility, we at the Communication Workers of America proudly highlight and honor Reverend Mack, not just for her words, but for her unwavering walk. May we all be challenged by her example and may we carry her message forward in our own work. You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all-new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org. Tune in every Thursday, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Podchaser. Search for CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Up next, we have Reginald Small with Union 101. Good morning, Reginald.
Good morning, Errol Minor, and good morning to our KYOK radio listeners. It is a glorious day at CWA. So today we are going to be talking about Union 101, Part 2. We discussed it a little bit last week, and we just want to share a little bit more insight on it. So listen, if you're thinking about organizing your workplace or even just talking about unions, I need you to lean in really, really close because this is Union 101, Part 2, Know Your Rights. And my father told me that in all you're getting, son, get you an understanding. So listen real close and get an understanding today. So bosses love to act like they hold all the cards. But the truth is you have rights and the law is definitely on your side. So let's start with the foundation. The National Labor Relations Act, or NLRA, passed in 1935. This federal law says you have the legal right to organize a union, talk about unionizing, attend meetings, sign cards, hand out flyers, and talk union with your coworkers on your own time and in non-work areas like break rooms or parking lots. So listen closely, get a clear understanding here. This is on your own time, not the company time, but your own time, and in non-work areas like break rooms and or parking lots. So let me say it plain. You cannot be fired, demoted, written up, or harassed for organizing. That would be an unfair labor practice, and it's illegal. Now, that's not to say that they wouldn't try to do those things because a person needs to want to abide by the law, and all people don't. But it is against the law to be fired, demoted, written up, or harassed for organizing. That would be an unfair labor practice, and it is definitely illegal. But here's what most employers will do when they feel threatened. They'll pull workers into closed-door captive audience meetings filled with lies. They'll promise you things that they should have been doing anyway, like raises or better schedules. They'll spread fear, saying, oh, the union can't protect you, or you'll be forced to strike. That's union busting 101. And yes, union busting is a thing, and they pay people and firms lots of money to get legal advice on union busting. It is illegal and it's manipulative. If your boss or supervisor starts acting funny, write it down. Document, document, document. Documentation is everything. Document times, dates, witnesses, save texts, screenshot emails. Documentation means everything. It is your protection. And here's a right most folks don't know. You can talk about unions at work as long as it doesn't interfere with your job duties. So yes, you can wear a union button. You can have conversations on break. You can distribute union literature in non-work areas during non-work times. People, knowledge is power. That's why employers work overtime to keep you in the dark. Because if everyone knew their rights, there'd be a union on every shop floor, in every office, in every warehouse, in every single hospital. And if something goes down, you don't have to handle it alone. Call your union, call CWA, get connected to a union rep or organizer. We've been doing this for decades, and we're not scared. So remember this, family. You have the right to organize. You have the right to speak. You have the right to build power on the job. They might not like it, but they definitely can't stop you. Not legally anyway, not morally, not today. This is our power, and we're just getting started. Back to you, Errol Minor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Reginald Small. You're listening to KYK 1140 AM and y'all do 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org. Tune in live every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Pod Chaser. Search for CWA Hour of Hour on your favorite podcast player. Today, we have an incredible guest joining us, Derrick Lewis II, the Interim National Director of Youth and College at NAACP. He's fresh off the 116th NAACP convention in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he delivered a powerful message to the next generation of civil rights leaders and warriors. From organizing in Texas to building a national movement rooted in youth, equity, and empowerment, Mr. Lewis is helping lead one of the oldest civil rights organizations into its boldest future yet. We also proud to be joined by our very own Tay Akins, representing CWA Next Gen, bringing that intergenerational labor energy right to the airwaves. Before we jump into our conversation with Derrick, we want to take a moment to just to shine a light on what CWA Next Gen is all about and how it connects with the kind of youth-led energy and power Derrick is building with the NAACP.
Next Gen is CWA's program to support young workers, especially those under 35, in developing leadership, organizing skills, and connections across locals. We know that the future of the labor movement and civil rights are deeply connected, and we're building bridges across both. So we're going to talk about leadership and background. Derrick, you ready?
Yes, I am. Let's get it.
Okay. What drew you into organizing and ultimately into your leadership role with the NAACP Youth and College Division?
Yeah, great question. So I think about what got me started in this organizing fight. I always refer to this as my birth date. And organizing is actually August 9th of 2014. August 9th of 2014 was the day that Michael Brown was murdered by the hand of police officers. And as I was hearing and seeing what happened with Michael Brown, I reflected and looked internally to myself as we were the same age, just graduated high school, about to go to college. And looking at that, that is what gave me my spark of energy or the sense of resistance into the movement. And that's actually where I started to get my involvement in with the NAACP. So during that time, I helped charter a unit at Angelo State University in 2014. I then transferred and continued to work with the NAACP and reactivated a unit at Houston-Tillotson University. where I really focused in on civic engagement, getting young people registered to vote on campus, and most importantly, turning out to vote, but also making sure that the institution that I was on, Houston-Tillotson University, was a democracy-friendly campus, meaning that they provided access, they amplified civic engagement, and ensured that the students that they had within their institution were prepared for the elections, but also advocated against what was going on outside the four walls of Houston-Tillotson University. So one campaign or issue that we picked up was how tobacco companies target market the community of color, and what did that mean for us as a institution who's seen the vast difference in between East Austin and West Austin as far as what was provided and amplified as far as ads being plastered of tobacco use in our neighborhood. But if we go 2 miles west, instead of tobacco ads being plastered, we looked at fresh produce being put forth, deals on snacks and drinks that kind of gave people access to a healthy life or a healthy lifestyle. But on the other side, it wasn't that. So seeing the vast difference in between target marketing and how that connected to where I currently live, but most importantly, ensuring that while I was there at Houston-Tillotson, that we were continued to develop and build strong advocates, not just for the institution, but outside the institution, to ensure that we can push against institutional norms, institutional policies that were causing harm to our communities. I noted and said that August 9th, 2014 was the day that was kind of my birth date into the movement. 4 years later, August 9th, 2018, is when it was quote unquote proclaimed Derrick Lewis Day. So I have my own day in the city of Austin that is in recognition of the advocacy and the organizing that I did while I was in undergrad. And at that point, I realized that that was also where we had just lost an election, preparing for an election what we've seen as a loss as far as who was elected did not represent our values, our issues, or ways that seen or created a better life for us. Even gave me more energy to figure out, okay, here I am in Austin, here I am in Texas. What else more can I do? I built relationships with national staff, specifically Tiffany Dina Lofton, who has been a mentor to me, a fierce organizer in this fight, and somebody that kind of kept me underneath her wing, who gave me mentorship and provided the opportunity to join me with the national staff. So now I've been here with the NAACP for the past 6 years now. I may not look like it, but I've been here about 6 years now. And in that realm, I've served as a field organizer focused on membership growth of our units across the country, not just in the areas in the South, but also in our low capacity areas in the Midwest and the West Coast, to ensure that the NAACP capacity or the NAACP voice is there, which has led to over 350 units that have been chartered and reactivated while I served in that role. I transitioned to the field manager, where I was overseeing our field organizers, our membership campaign, and still focusing on strategic growth. And now I serve as the interim national director of the Youth and College Division, overseeing our issue priorities, our campaigns, our partners, and our staff at the national office.
Derrick, you can definitely hear the passion you have for the work that you're doing. So, of course, I want to ask you, the 116th convention for the NAACP was filled with youth energy and urgency. What was the key message you wanted youth people to leave with after that convention?
Yeah, so our theme for the convention was the fierce urgency of now. And of course, when we think about the fierce urgency of now, it's for us speaking to our members that we can't wait. The moment that we have right now is not a moment for us to ponder, to decide if we want to hop in or hop out, but we need members that are ready to go right now. And in that theme of the fierce urgency of now, the youth was like, yeah, the fierce urgency of now, but what does it mean for us to ignite our power? So that was kind of the sub theme for the Youth and College Division's convention. And when we think about ignite the power, and the message I really wanted to give folks was really, when we reflect back and we see where we are right now in 2025, and we reflect back over the past 30, 40, 50 years, even the civil rights movement, we have to think about what is the role that youth played, and understanding the victories that were won, and the strategies that were successful in terms of when we had resistance, what was done and what was the outcome of that. And for me, I was thinking about how can we take this moment to learn from the past, building organizers for the present. But most importantly, as we build those organizers for the present, we should be strong, militant, and capable in all things. How are we also employing them and amplifying our youth and providing, as I say, lanes of opportunity for youth to take ownership of the future? That means that in terms of what they are fighting for and in terms of what they believe in, that they have the skills necessary, they feel prepared, but most importantly, that they're leading with that act of resistance. And the energy doesn't just start a convention, it doesn't end a convention, but it continues throughout their advocacy journey as they're fighting once they get back home.
And Derrick, you've called the youth the moral compass of the movement. What does that mean in today's socio-political climate? Without being too partisan or, doing any of that, what does that mean, being the moral compass?
Yeah, great question. I appreciate you adding in the piece around partisanship. We're not partisan, but not blind to the issues. And I think that's the same thing exactly with youth. One, when I think about the moral compass, is even for youth to be the moral compass, are we actually listening to them? And when I think about are we listening to them as far as what they're saying that is a problem? I don't know if you've all been tracking and seeing and what's been going on in civic engagement and voting, but over the past few years, 4 or 5 years for sure, there has been some states, some cities, and counties that have lowered the voting age to 16. And in that realm has been a understanding of what youth are saying that are issues to them somewhat conflates with what adults are talking about as well. So when we think about youth being a moral compass, are we prioritizing the issues of the youth so that they can live in a better future, so that they don't have to go through the same things that we're currently going through? Are we prioritizing our youth and listening to them when it comes to education, when it comes to safe spaces, when it comes to those that are part of the queer community? Are we providing safe spaces to them and listening to them of what they need? Because oftentimes when youth are being talked to or listened to in a sense, adults or those with power listen to respond to what they're saying, but not actually listening to respond with the solution to the problem of what they're bringing forth. So I think about when it comes to prioritizing the issues and what makes youth the moral compass of this world, youth are being outspoken about what's going on in education. Youth are being outspoken about what is mis and disinformation and how this has caused harm among them, but most importantly, their peers. We are also have to listen to youth when it comes to these international issues as well. Youth have been on the forefront when it's come to the genocide that's happening in Gaza, and also along with large corporations in terms of what should be acceptable and what should not be acceptable, and how we can start to adopt humanitarian values to ensure that we're not just looking at identities to create division, but most importantly, looking at the whole person to ensure that they can live in a healthy society that protects and that protects and sees them not just as an individual, but as a human by themselves.
I love that you said that. And before we move to the next question, we had a segment here on the show with Tay and I, because we're both under 35 for the time being. We had a segment about um, not just a seat at the table, but not a kid's meal. And so I love that you touched on how, the humanitarian aspect and how we need to stop talking at the youth and actually listening to and honoring what they say. Because what I like to say is that people are people. And if we're looking to younger people as the next generation, then we need to understand, identify, and amplify, like you said, what they're asking for. Because how can you prep somebody to be in a role of leadership if you don't give them the opportunity to lead? So I really do appreciate that. And Tay's going to ask you the next question.
Yes. So how did it feel after everything you just spoke about right now? How did it feel to witness young folks take the lead in Charlotte, building libraries, raising their voices, and setting the tone for for this next generation?
Yeah, it was beautiful to see. It was very beautiful to see. I think as one of the organizers or planners for the Youth and College Division Convention, it takes months and months of the planning. And in that, we figure out what is the lane that we can create for youth to understand what they need to be successful after they leave here. But it was beautiful to see because it's while like a convention, it's not just an annual convention. It's not just your annual family reunion amongst the NAACP, but it's actually an act of resistance. When you have over 5,000 attendees in one space for one common goal, when you have over 500 youth that are coming together with energy, with who are adamant about what they want to see done and change, is beautiful to see because when we realize it, when we come together, is that yes, it's majority NAACP, but it's not just the NAACP. We realize that there are folks that come in from the community, that there are also members and young people who come from different organizations that come to this melting pot to really understand what it means to be strong, militant, and capable in the rim of the NAACP, but also thinking about how we create spaces for our partners to come into this space so our members are exposed to different strategies, different ideas, different ethnicities as well, so that we can continue the work. But saying all that to say that it's not just one org, one person, or one NAACP, but it takes all of us working together. And I think that's what our convention kind of really just shared with us is that it's all of us working together in this act of resistance. When we've seen the libraries being built, it was hosted by the NAACP, but D9 was there, churches were there, service orgs were there as well that came and bought into the mission, the values of what we were putting forth and wanted to be in that mission with us. And I think that is always going to be what convention will be for us as we continue to reach out and figure out what is our strength and our power to fight up against this, as I say, this bad, hostile force that we have in front of us.
And Derek,
Okay,
let
so
me tell you. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mikeya.
now, Errol, I mean, he just gonna try to take all our jobs from us, but so I'm gonna let you go because his last statement kind of encompassed a lot of the next question. So go ahead and Errol, ask what you wanted to ask, and then I'll jump back in.
Okay, no problem at all. And one of the things I was going to say was my phone has started jumping. So what Derek is talking about, it is already has jumped into the community, into the labor community, and people are already talking about it. So right here, I want to ask Derek, there is still a misconception that the NAACP is only for Black folks. Can you speak directly to our audience about who the NAACP is for and how it welcomes all races, cultures, faiths, identities, including BIPOC, LGBTQIA plus, and immigrant communities?
Yeah, great question. I love getting this question. People like, oh, NAACP, it's like color people. Sure. Yeah. People say NAACP Black people. Yes. And to that point, when we think about the NAACP and the work that we do, I like to frame it in the sense of we are building a healthy society. In order for a healthy society to function from our rim and how we look at it is one, are we taking care of our elders in their time of rest? Meaning that as our elders are getting older and there are resources that are afforded to them, do they have the accommodations that they need to live their life as they are essentially transitioning? Do they have access to healthcare? Do they have the accommodations that they need to make things a lot easier for them on a day-to-day basis? But two, as we're taking care of our elders, are we developing youth leaders to become the leaders of today? In order for any health society to be functional, we have to understand how do we create space and make space for the next generation as far as developing them in their core skills, their soft skills, their hard skills to be productive citizens into the society, and also ensuring that their role in leadership and advocacy is not an afterthought, but it's something that also continues. And thirdly, when I think about a health society is, are we advocating or continue to advocate for oppressed communities? So when we think about communities that are being oppressed, that can be the poor community, that can be those that are part of the queer community, that can be our elders, that can be those. And when we think about that, every time where we see that there is a sense of oppression towards somebody, the NAACP steps up and fights back. Because what we understand is while the NAACP, even in our mission, we say that, we're focused on Black people. We want to make sure that we can advance, accelerate, and ensure that the policies, the economic, social, and well-being of our community is focused. Yes, it's focused on Black people. What we realize is when we focus on those communities in all aspects of life, is that when we do it well and we do it to win. So when we go against and we see what oppression is coming up against us, not just us as a Black community, but for our neighbors, folks who live with us, that we stand up and we fight back against them. So the NAACP is for everyone to join if you believe that, if you have a sense of humanitarian values and believe that we should live in a future or live in a world where equity and justice is afforded to everyone. That is how we define a healthy society. And also to that point, Errol, something that hasn't been talked about, I think, not as much, is the sense around immigration and how immigration also ties to the fight of civil rights and social justice. I
Yes.
always like to tell people that when you talk about the immigrant community, it's not just one face to the community, but it has multiple faces to it. So ensuring that we can understand and identify the connection or the interconnection that we have with different ethnicities, different communities towards this fight. Because again, once we realize right now is that yes, communities are being attacked by their identities. That is the truth. And to that, what are we doing as a organization to amplify that, to educate our folks, but most importantly, serve as an act of resistance? Because even when we look back into our history, as I was saying earlier, there wasn't just one group that was fighting against all this. I'm also like to say it was what America actually looked like. There were Black people, there were white people, there were those that were Latino. There were all different makeups that were there on the front lines fighting with and for each other for a better America. And that is what we are re-emphasizing now, not just within the NAACP, but across the country and our partners that we work with to ensure that we're being inclusive with the fight that is ahead, but most importantly, the issues that we can be supportive towards.
Yes.
Derrick,
Yes.
so let me ask you, when we talk about educating, what roles do programs like Freedom Libraries play in resisting book bans and anti-Black curriculum cuts and education censorship?
Yeah, so the Freedom Library is right. People want to say it's a day of service. People want to say it's cute libraries being put around the city in a school district. And I was like, yeah, you can call it cute because it looks good. I mean, it was created. Yes, it is cute. But most importantly, the Freedom Libraries are direct resistance, a direct act of resistance. When we think about books being banned, when we think about our stories being taken away, we build spaces to tell them louder. The libraries created access to truth. They created access to literacy, but most importantly, reflecting of who those books are reflective of. Those books are reflective of Black people, Indigenous people, marginalized authors, and they remind young people of our history, our brilliance, our culture, and reminding them and affirming them that we can't be erased no matter how hard they try. And this is just that one form of resistance that we will continue to build up and scale upon over the years.
So, what's your advice to young organizers facing backlash or suppression in their schools, cities, or states?
So when I think of this as far as advice, one, stay grounded. Know that you're not alone in this fight. And the suppression is a sign of your work is powerful or something is working, right? But in that, know that you're not alone means that you have to find your people. You have to find your community. If that's the NAACP, we're here for you. If that is another org, that's great too. We're gonna find your runner block and we're gonna circle. We're gonna get together too. But making sure that you can build with trusted people and members that you have within your community, find mentors that can pour into you. I mean, most importantly, don't feel like you have to do it all by yourself. Figure out ways that you can delegate, that you can lean into your strengths. Always tell people across the nation is that like everybody has a role within this fight. James Baldwin said, look, I'm not going to be on the front lines. I cannot take being hosed down. That's not my role. But I'm going to make sure that I can tell the story. I can scribe it to make sure that when future generations come, they have what is truth of what actually happened versus what's being shared. So I always say that the fight is a relay. It's not a sprint. Take care of yourself. Never stop speaking truth to power, and understand who your trusted community is and continue to build upon that. So you have what I always say is people power. When we have the people power that we have to fight back against resistance, when we have the people power to change what policy looks like, that is where the power lies. That it lies within us, it lies within the people, but that's only if we are working together as one whole.
Perfect. Derrick, what's the connection between youth organizing and the labor movement?
See, this is a great question. And I feel like oftentimes people may try to separate the two when we're fighting for the same fight. When I think about what we're fighting for in that same vein, that is dignity, that is protection, that is power, that is equity for the community and working people. When we think about youth organizing and labor, they are deeply connected because young people are workers. Young people juggle many things at once. So we think about young people, and people say, "Oh, like young people are workers." Yes, they are. Young people juggle school, jobs, extracurricular activities. Sometimes young people have to take on caregiving and activism at the same time, and that is a lot to juggle with. Everything that we have to understand is that with young people, some of these things are optional. Some of these things they have to do. Young people have to go to school. Some young people do not have the option if they have to work or if they're being forced to work at a young age because they have to add into the house on top of the extracurricular activities. So when we unite with labor and we amplify our collective voice and demand systems that they value people over profit, it's literally the same. But we're doing it in different sectors. And when it comes together, we understand that the intersection of the two cannot be separate, but they coexist together to make a better world.
Wonderful. And when I tell you my phone is jumping over here, Derek, you have lit a fire in the community this morning because I have questions over here talking about who is Derek? Where did he come from? So thank you for coming on today. Now, I do have a question because we're not going anywhere just yet. How can CWA members and local unions support the work of NAACP youth and college chapters?
Yeah, so when I think about the members, one, I would say that I'm national. I'm just one person. But the work that people see by the NAACP across the country is done by our local members and our local leaders across the nation. For the CWA members, I would encourage you and implore you to continue to show up and to connect with our local members, our local presidents, our state conference presidents to continue the work. This is not just with you making a donation, but becoming a member, going to the training, finding areas of solidarity where the work can coexist. But most importantly, with those spaces, we need spaces to where we can learn from each other. How can we learn how organizing is done on your side and how it's done on our side and how it comes together? Understanding for us, we need to understand what are worker rights, right? How can we make sure that we can learn from each other, build with each other, and build this cross-generational strategy where labor and youth and civil rights unite. And when we do, we understand that we can become unstoppable. So I would encourage you all to stay connected with our local units, our local chapters. We are now in the realm to where we just had our national convention. Our state conventions are now happening. So our state conventions are happening from August all the way until December. We can continue to learn, amplify, and share common ground where we can work together and find that common ground of the issues and not just how it's the NAACP or CWA, but it's both of us coexisting, working together for a better future in our better communities.
So, Derrick, I've been following your work and seeing the impact it's having across communities. And I have a couple of questions from my lens as a labor activist, a humanitarian, and someone that's passionate about youth justice. So I wanted to ask you, how can youth-led movements hold national organizations accountable, not just government and corporations, but our own organizations?
So when I think about how youth-led movements can really add and kind of aid into that, I think about a few things, right? When we think about youth-led movements and especially holding national organizations accountable, and I'm glad you added not just government and corporate organizations, but even our own organization, even the NAACP. I think one, we have to be accountability source of clarity, transparency, and courage, right? Youth-led movements can hold national organizations accountable by doing a few things. One, setting clear expectations around values, equity, and impact. And more specifically, can you name those values and when they are being compromised? I think it's very clear that in most of these organizations, they predate youth. The NAACP has been here for over 116 years, so it predates me. So with that, ensuring that in that intergenerational connection, they were being clear on the values or the expectations of what youth prioritize or what needs to be done. I think two is also that you need to also create internal pressure through organized action, whether that's petition, open letters, or resolutions. One thing that I like to say about the NAACP is that, just hear me out, we have a board of 64 members. Some people are like, okay, that's a lot for a board. But within that board, we have 7 spots that are reserved for youth. I'm not sure of how many organizations reserve youth open spaces for on their board, but we do as the association. But also just name it from the NAACP, we also have a resolution process that our youth members can participate in, where they can say that in this resolution process that we can change internally what our policy is and externally what our policy is and where we stand on certain organizations. So whatever that may be, as far as where youth or whatever organization that you may have, what is that internal process or that procedure that youth can lean into to shift or to change where the organization is going? The third one I would say is use your collective power to shift the narrative. Youth aren't just the future; they are actually now. When we speak in one voice and demand change, legacy has to listen at that point. But you have to be coordinated and you have to be collective again, as far as setting your clear expectation and what that ask is. And I think most importantly, it's not just about calling in, but also calling out. Not about canceling, but about building systems where our leadership is respected and our concerns are met with this, then symbolism. What are we actually doing for youth, or what can youth do as far as calling out what can be changed, but most importantly, building new systems in the sense of innovation. How are we using youth in terms of the innovation when it comes to tech, when it comes to new ideas, to ensure that the organization is not just alive for the next 10, 15 years because we have youth, but also we have innovation that meets the current needs of today.
All right, Derrick, before we get out of here, I want to give you one opportunity. I want to call this the Shout Out Challenge. Who's a local hero, youth leader, or chapter you want to shout out? Someone that's actually doing the work that deserves the spotlight.
So in all respect, I always say the South has something to say and always will have something to say. I think of a young lady in Killeen, Texas. Her name is Kalina Moultrie. She is 9 years old, which is recognized as one of our regional organizers of the year in Region 6, which composed of Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Arkansas. Now, with her, this is somebody who is a NAACP baby. I was like, okay, like she's been brought up in the NAACP. But the work that she's doing is monumental. She didn't win a national award because she was just a youth involved in the association. She just showed up, but also because this is somebody that is vocal as well, that is vocal to speak up against her school board, that is vocal to also, as we know what's going on in Texas with the gerrymandering and the redistrict and the redrawing of maps, who also just participated in sharing her testimony remarks and being present at the state capitol in Austin. So really want to give a shout out to Ms. Moultrie, who's a 9-year-old in Killeen, Texas. But when I think of youth leaders like her, this is somebody that we have to look out for and protect, because her advocacy is starting now and it will continue to scale and become greater as she gets older.
Derrick Lewis II, on behalf of CWA, Our Power Radio Show, we thank you for your leadership, your truth, and commitment to building a future rooted in justice, inclusion, and youth power. Thank you for joining us today on the CWA Our Power Radio Show. You're listening to KYOK 1140 AM and the all new 106.5 FM. If you're on the go, you can take us with you by visiting kyokradio.org. Listen and subscribe to us every Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific on kyokradio.org, the CWA Strong app, or your preferred podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, iHeartRadio, Pod Chaser. Search for CWA Hour of Power on your favorite podcast player. Up next, we have Tea With Tay. Good morning, Tay.
Good morning, KYOK family, and to my CWA family. So today we're going to be talking about the privilege to opt out and who's really doing the work. So family, grab your mugs. It's time for another segment of Tea with Tay. And today I'm serving a brew that is going to warm you up. Now, I've been listening to the show's lineup today, and one word keeps ringing in my spirit, and that's labor. Whether it's Reginald's Union 101 or call out of performative activism, or Mikeya giving us space for self-care, it's clear that labor movement, the civil rights movement, and the whole freedom fight, it takes work, real work, soul work. And let's not pretend that everyone's doing it. Let's talk about the privilege to opt out. See, some folks post a hashtag once a year and call that activism. They feel if they completed their job for this year. They clap at the rallies, but go ghost at the organizing meetings. We're left to knock on the doors and show up for our people alone. They benefit from the union contracts, but can't be found during the campaign. Now hear that again. You benefit from the union contracts, and all of us on this show today know how hard it is to organize or get a contract, but you can't be found when we need you the most. They'll sit in diversity trainings, nodding like they care. Then they go back into their corner office and keep the door shut. And the culture remains toxic. They've convinced themselves that being aware is the same as being accountable. However, let me make it clear, the luxury of stepping back from the fight is a privilege, period. It's a privilege. And what about our disabled siblings, like Rick Hansen, who willed through 34 countries, not for show, not for fame, but to push the world forward for people with disabilities? That's not performance, that's persistence. That's legacy work. And he didn't have the luxury to opt out. This was about him. So let me ask you all, who's at the march but afraid to go to the mic? Who's in the group chat but never show up to the picket line? Who's collecting the check but refusing to acknowledge the work that went into it and checking themselves? And while we're pouring this tea, let me stir the cup just a little harder. Who gets applauded for doing the bare minimum because of their identity, while minorities, queer, disabled, or working class folks have to bleed just to be heard? I told you today was going to warm you up. So to all the folks on here doing the work, showing up, speaking up, standing up, I see you, we see you. And to all the ones on the sidelines, sipping tea while we all acknowledge that the house is burning down. Baby, it's time to get off the porch and join the fight. And if you're wondering where to start by not being a spectator in someone else's survival. That's the tea for today. Next week, I'll be sipping on worker mental health during layoffs, because rest is resistance, and unions are the safety net to many who are denied. Until then, stay bold, stay loud, and stay ready, because the revolution will not be performative. Back to you, Errol.
Thank you so much, Tay. That was awesome. All right, where's Mikeya?
I'm here and I'm glad that we're about to talk about collateral grief because the things that I've been witnessing on the news and in mainstream media, um, they've touched me tremendously. Um, so I'm glad that we're going to talk about this for the next few minutes, and then we're going to, pick it back up next week. But I do think that's something that we need to talk about and to encourage and lift everybody up. So, basically, to give a little background, a little basis on what I'm talking about the grief that we've all been facing due to immigration and the way that our migrant community has been treated when they're coming here to seek solace in solitude. Um, because, I was minding my own business, just like I always do, peacefully scrolling through social media, trying to stay grounded in this world. But next thing you know, I fell down a rabbit hole. And what hit me deep this time, I started thinking about something I never heard anyone talking about, like not the news, not social media, and not even the advocacy circle. And I want to ask all of you and everybody listening, have you ever thought about how these migration raids or immigration raids are impacting American families who adopted children from other countries? I
Mhm.
mean, kids from Mexico, Haiti, Asia, Africa, all being raised by American parents. How are they processing these attacks? So we're going to call today's segment, and again, we're going to pick it up next week because our time is limited today, but we're going to call it Collateral Grief when Immigration Raids Hit Home because that's what it is. It's grief that sneaks into the safest places in our country, which is our homes. And even when that child is a citizen on paper, the system still sees them through a lens of suspicion. And let's be real, this isn't about paperwork. These raids don't come with a spreadsheet of who's legal and who's not. They come with trauma. And when a black or brown child, adopted or not, opens the door, the first thing they see is an American citizen. They see threat or they see other. And even if they're not, even if we're not knocking on their doors because they have American citizen parents or their household doesn't look as brown or black as others, they can see across the street, they see their neighbors. These things are happening at graduations and in elementary schools. They're happening in our grocery stores. So I just want us to just take a moment to sit with this and expound on it.
You're absolutely correct, and I guess it's okay for me to jump right on in right here, huh, Mikeya? Uh, just imagine a 12-year-old that's adopted from Haiti and growing up in Georgia, and they're just outside riding their bikes, and someone calls ICE. I mean, you go to school wondering, are they coming for me? Even though I'm a citizen since I was two. So there's so much to unpack in this thought, and I am pretty sure all of us will go down a rabbit hole when we just really take the time to start delving into this. Come on, Reginald.
Well, Errol, yes, and it is a rabbit hole because when you start talking about the immigration raids and you throw in the children in it, it does give you something to actually think about in a deeper way. But, as far as I'm concerned, no one should be living in fear. And this has been, in some ways, in my opinion, definitely an abuse of power. There's no person here that should be living in fear whether or not they're going to come home to not having a parent or not understanding the full impact of what is going on in our society. I mean, I'm a very, very grown man, and a lot of this stuff is still amazing to me that I'm actually hearing, not on just social media, but actually on the news. And as I travel throughout doing different trainings and diversity work, I'm actually hearing personal accounts of people that are going into hiding and stuff. So it is a rabbit hole in some sort because I know you're leaning us towards talking about the children, but
Mhm.
the overall atrocity of what is happening with these raids is devastating, and it does need to be talked about in its entirety.
And you know what I
Exactly.
was thinking about? I just had to jump in here just based off what he said, where it's like it's an atrocity. Because I'm just thinking, and I'm like, there is there really aren't any like guidelines, or at least I haven't seen them being acted out in practice. And so what I was thinking about too is in a lot of major cities, um, there are a lot of immigrant uh, domestic workers, right? And housekeepers and nannies and things like that. And I'm just thinking, could you imagine going off to work, sending your child to the park with their nanny, and then they just come take the nanny and your kid is just left at a
Hmm.
park in New York City or Chicago or wherever. And it's just like, and then they have no answers for you, right? Like they don't tell you where your kid, they don't know where your kid went, they don't know where the nanny is. Like there's no recourse, there's no resolve, there aren't any steps or any rules or guidelines for us to follow. And again, it brings me to where, they had those children as young as like 3 years old in court representing themselves, and they don't know where their parents are, and there's no way to reconnect them. And it's just the trauma. And I like to bring up the youth and the children because, again, people, for me, I don't understand how we as human beings and as people and as adults don't realize that our childhood trauma impact and shape us to who we are today. And our society is molded that way, that people, the next generation is our future, and we're not cognizant of what we're doing to these children.
You're absolutely correct. Let's pause this right here. I think that's a good place right now, and we'll pick up with this on next week. Are you guys okay with that?
Yes, it's definitely a subject that I would like to talk about a little bit more, Errol. So perhaps you can get with the producer and we open with this.
Okay, that'll be great. Now, I don't think she'll mind not one bit. Okay, because we got to survive the cycle. All right. So as we come down to the final minutes of the show, our union brothers, sisters, and siblings at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette have been outside for 33 months on the picket lines, and yet while they are striking, they're still churning out the news with facts for you and me. Let's show our support to them by making sure we subscribe to unionprogress.com. Once you subscribe to this free publication, how about going over and donating to their strike fund at cwa.org/ppg-donate. I just heard someone shout, "We are one." That's right, we are one. July and all of its awareness days are an opportunity for you, yes, you, to take action and learn more today. When you take time to learn more about others around you, you're making the world a better place. Awareness campaigns serve as a powerful reminder that there are steps we all must take in looking out for loved ones, the people in our community, and those who have been impacted. It's time to take one big step together and make a change. An hour is not long enough to be with you, and a week is too long to be away from you. You have been tuned into the CWA Human Rights Hour Power Radio broadcast. I hope something you heard today has inspired you to take action toward creating positive change in the world. Every person has the power to make a difference, no matter how small. And by working together, we can create a world where human rights are respected and valued. So I encourage each of you in the listening audience to reflect on your role in promoting human rights to effect change in your communities and beyond. Know that you are not alone in your quest for a more just and equitable world. When faced with injustice, it can be easy to lose hope and give up. But remember, justice may be slow like the truth, but when it finally comes, it will stand. Until next Thursday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on KYOK 1140 a.m. and y'all new 106.5 FM, KYOKradio.org. See you next week.